Welcome to Season 2 of Empowered K-12. I'm your host, Alana Pinckley, and you're listening to Partners in Purpose, a series of conversations with partners who are developing purpose-driven solutions to help schools and communities thrive. Today, I'm sitting down with Chris Nunez, founder of Map4, and we'll be breaking down why E-rate matters in today's economy, how it supports equitable access to broadband, and what broadband providers should understand about working with schools.
Morning, Alana. Thanks for having me. Hey, did I say your name correctly? Is it Alana? Alana? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to have you here and to have this conversation. Just to start us off, could you just tell us a little bit more about your background?
My background. I'll try to keep it short because I'm older now. I've been in technology my whole career since I was 20. I started my first company when I was 22 years old, right? So, I raised venture capital a little bit after that, but that's a whole nother episode of my life. We don't need to go into all that, but, sold that company, started another company. So, but it's always been tech, right? It's always been software and technology and databases. And so this is a natural fit. I thought I was going to retire. 4 years ago, I thought I was actually going to retire, but the AI thing, I couldn't sit on the sidelines. I could being in technology my whole life, I could not sit on the sidelines. So my background's very varied, right? I mean, I've had to do management, I've had to raise money, I've had to do sales, I've had to run technology teams, I've built companies and all that. So I'm actually a living, breathing, everybody's reading about it, the solo AI entrepreneur. That's what's going on here. I feel like I have a team of 10, but really it's just me and AI. And it's capable. Everybody's worried about their jobs, and you better be worried about your jobs because it's real. We can do a whole other show on AI, but
it can really replace a lot of things. It does make our lives easier, though.
That's a good topic, right? All by itself, right? Is it easier? There's
a learning curve,
right? Well, you can't get around the work, right? And it's not going to do it for you. I don't know how to say it other way. It's not going to, people who think they can just buy some software and become a millionaire, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. You still got to know what to tell it. That's the way I look at it. And if you don't have the experience for whatever you're telling it to do, then you won't know if it's doing a good job or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want to go down the AI rabbit hole.
Yeah. we could. Well, we have to do another episode on that one because there is a lot that we could get into.
I know. It could go
real
fast.
Let's talk about the federal E-rate program, and because that's something that, a lot of district leaders benefit from. And I think our conversation is really going to open up more about it to other people that might not be in a school district, because before I started working with schools, I had no idea that it was a thing. So for those of us who might be outside of the school system, what exactly is the federal E-rate program and why does it matter to them?
Yeah, I'll go 40,000 foot view, right? Basically, 30 years ago, Congress passed, let's just call it a Telecommunications Act, right? So it's Congress, it's federal, but the whole idea was schools that are out in rural areas or schools, that don't have the money to get high-speed internet. That means the kids aren't getting what everybody else is getting. And so the law that got passed was basically every telecommunications company in the United States, whether it's AT&T, whether it's Verizon, whether it's your phone bill, it doesn't matter. Every telecommunications company puts a little bit of money. If you look in your bill, you will see something called the Universal Fund. It could be only pennies. It could be a couple dollars, depending. But that goes to fund the schools to get broadband. And so there's like $5 billion a year that gets pushed out to all the schools. It's a very complex process because the government's involved. It's a lot of money, but like a school can get 90% of their internet bill paid for. 90%. So if you want a high speed, whatever, Comcast feed into the school, that's $1,000 a month. I mean, you're only paying $100. So the statistics now are almost 90% of schools are participating. And it's not just public schools. It can be charter schools, private schools, libraries. There's big consortiums that also apply to the program, but it's like a big RFP process, or request proposal. process. So there's just a lot of rules, right? Because the government, I mean, the whole idea is it's supposed to be a fair bidding process. So the schools put out what their needs are, right? And then vendors have 30 days to bid on it. And then there's rules on how, you're supposed to do that. Right? It's supposed to be mostly based on price. It can be a little bit based on service and reliability and stuff like that. But the bottom line is the government doesn't want the schools to get, ripped off. I mean, that's what's going on. I mean, I don't know if that's the right term or not, but that's what's going on is the government's funding all this money, right? And that's another thing that it gets, I talked to a lot of people now over the last couple of years, and so it's not a tax. It's the telecommunications companies putting money in, and then the government manages, because it's a lot of money, $5 billion, is managing that through an audit process. Another term I like to use is it's not net 30. Everybody knows what net 30 is? You pay a vendor and you can pay them in 30 days. No, it's net 1 year. Okay, so the government, okay, so you put out your RFP, you pick your vendor, your vendors, whatever, who it is, nobody gets paid till next year.
Yeah.
Nobody gets, you don't get, so there's a lot of different things that happen in that, right? Because there's a whole what's called an E-rate cycle, right? It goes, and it lines up with the actual school, most of the schools take the summers off, right? So the E-rate cycle is when school's in session, and in the summertime, that's when everybody's like, okay, penny up, pony up, right? Everybody gets paid in the summer, right? The schools get their reimbursements, the vendors get paid, and there's a lot of different things. But it works. It works, right? Because if you're a school out in the middle of nowhere, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I appreciate you explaining that. And I think, a lot of people hear about the school funding programs, but they don't always see what goes into implementing those and what goes into trying to access that funding. So why do schools and libraries usually need support navigating the E-rate requirements?
Yeah, it's sort of what I just talked about, right? If you don't, in schools, they're just trying to, manage the kids, right? They're doing all kinds of other things, right? Understanding, requests for proposals and specifications and compliance and trying to read all the rules that the government's, they just, what has happened, and I'm also a school consultant, is they hire consultants who, take a piece of the, they're not whatever. So maybe they only get 85%, but they'll pay their consultant to help them fill out the forms, do the deadlines. I'm in the middle of one right now. I got to get the receipts for my school in Minnesota, and then I got to submit that because they've been approved for their funding. It's not trivial. It's $11,000 for their internet bill this year, and so they got to prove that they're paying it, and I got to submit that to the government, and then the government's got to review it, and the audit team's got to look at it. Okay, it all looks right. It's a Comcast bill. Yeah, it's real. It's a real receipt. Because they don't want any fraud, right? They don't want. So the schools can do it themselves, but most of them hire consultants to help them through that, because you got to do everything at the right time too. You got to do everything at the right time. You got to fill out all the right forms. You got to do it correctly. Otherwise, it gets rejected. Blah, blah, blah. Then you got to do an appeal. No, it's just right. And one of my best friends is a superintendent where my kids went to private school, and she's just like, oh man, you know what? Fine. I'll give somebody else, whatever. And it's not hard once you understand it, right? But I think most, it depends, right? It depends on how big you are, right? If a small school, if it's just one, 200 kids and a couple people running it, they'd probably just try to do it themselves. But then you get big districts. You get big. Even in your area, Phoenix, right? You get big, and then you get the Indian reservations. I'm not sure if I'm using the right term. Yeah, where and that's a whole completely different set of rules for them.
Yeah, that's true. And we have a lot of those out here.
Yeah, that's what came to mind. I'm actually working on signing up a contract in your area with a fiber provider to help them. So
well, that's awesome. And that kind of leads us into the economic side of this, because as we know, costs are rising everywhere right now. So how can E-rate help districts manage the rising technology costs?
Well, so that's the whole point of the E-rate program is it's based on their, sound derogatory, but it's based on their poverty level. And the federal government uses the school lunch program, which I found fascinating. So basically, if the kids are using the school lunch program, which is a federal program, to pay for their meals at school, if most of the kids are using it, they get more discount.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And then if they're in a real high end area, maybe an urban area that, then maybe they'll only get 50% discount because they're not using the school. So they don't need it, right? The kids bring in their own food and they got their own money in their pockets, right? And so they don't need it. So, seems fair to me, right? It's a pretty good way to do it, right?
I mean, it's an interesting way too to base it off of the school lunches.
Yeah, I found that fascinating and seems like it works for me. So economically, if you're but even 50% off a $1,000 bill is $1,000 a month bill is substantial.
Yeah, definitely. And especially for, when it comes to like the long-term infrastructure planning and just.
Yeah. That's something that the consultants like myself help also because there are just a lot of little intricacies in the way the government runs it, right? So it's not just internet bills. It's also for equipment, routers, switches, cables, whatever you need. Maintenance, say somebody maintains your network for you, right? And a lot of schools do that, right? A lot of schools hire a contractor. And so, but that's all can be submitted for, it's not a grant. This is what gets a little bit interesting. It's not a grant, so you don't have to apply for it. It's not, it's not freebie or a tax or anything like that. It's fascinating. I mean, it's the telecommunications companies all coming together. Now, let's say, so Verizon, since they're really big, right? Remember I talked about that little line item on your phone bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, theirs is going to be pretty big, right? 'Cause right. So they're so it's all going to contribute this, into that fund. But then Verizon's also going to bid on the schools to put their bids out, so they might get it back, right?
Yeah.
And then, economic, I mean, I don't know, it seems fair to me. I mean, it's convoluted, but it seems, in the end, it seems fair to me, right? It's the entire telecommunications industry supporting our school system.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it should be because we're all involved in the community.
Yeah.
We all have, even if we don't have kids, we know other kids that are going to school and they should have access to education and technology as part of that. So I think that's the super. So let's talk a little bit more about Map4.
Okay.
You're the co-founder of Map4, which uses the geospatial intelligence to help identify broadband opportunities. So can you tell us a little bit more about Map4 and what inspired you to build it?
So what happens is, I met somebody that works for one of these telecommunications companies, and his whole job is to bid on E-rate RFPs, and when they drop, right? And his whole problem was the amount of. So he's responsible for a geographic area. He's a sales rep. He's managing like whatever 10 states, right, in the Midwest. And he's by himself, and he has to monitor when all these RFPs drop. And he has to figure out if they're good for his company. And the bottom line is for fiber. Okay, let's just talk fiber, right? There's lots of different types of telecommunications, right? There's phone, there's wireless, there's satellite. Okay, but the biggest growing one right now is fiber, which is basically the optical cables in the ground or they're hanging on the phone wires, right? Because they do use light, they don't use electricity. Okay, so. Mm-hmm. So his whole thing is once the season starts, and it's happening already, started in July 1st, he gets inundated with all these RFPs he's got to be able to review. And the most important thing for him is, it's got to be near where his fiber is in the ground. If it's not, then they have to spend millions of dollars to trench and dig. And so what he's looking for is the schools that are applying for funding near his existing routes. Now, there was multiple pieces of technology to do that he was doing, but it was like in 3 different places, right? So he'd have to go to the government system to look up the RFPs, then he'd have to type in the address into another system that would look up, see if it's close. And so all we did was bring it all together into one platform. So now when he logs into Map4, he's presented with, okay, here's 15 schools that are looking for RFPs, it's got a map button, clicks right on the map button, and automatically shows him exactly where the schools are. And the other thing that makes it hard with the schools is they can have multiple addresses. The high school, the middle school, the preschool, the bus station, the depot, the whatever, right? They have all that, and they all need internet now, right? So what Map4 shows him in just one click, it shows the sales rep exactly where all the locations are for that school. And then the other really powerful thing that I didn't even know was going to happen, but it makes sense. The federal government system's all about transparent. It's transparent. It's a government system. You can't hide anything. And so all of the schools' funding history for the last 20 years is in the system. And so from a salesman standpoint, he gets to see who's got the contract now, how much they paid last year, when is the contract expiring, what the specs are. And so in the end, it makes it fair. But all of that information is buried inside of these government systems. Oh my God. And when I first met Martin, I said, I knew because I'd done I'd done databases for NASA and I'm not bragging or anything like that. But the government, the government knows how to make things that's their job, is to make it so that nobody can find it. Right. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that, but
I mean, that's true.
Well, it's just, and so I knew before I even looked at what the government had done, I knew what I was going to find. I knew what I was going to find. And so we pulled it all together. The other thing that we did is it all runs on your phone. So the user interface right from the get-go. So the salesman, he's a sales rep. He's in meetings, he's calls, he's running around. Right? He's not sitting at his computer. He's not a programmer. And so, but the government didn't care about that, right? The government said, well, here's our system. And, run it on a phone, good luck. Right. And so the combination of that, right, we just pulled it all together and made it so that he could now, so it's good for the schools too, right? Because now we're connecting the providers who are bidding on their systems. They can find them easier. That was another thing that was happening is the schools would put it on RFP, but nobody could find it.
Yeah.
So how are they going to get good bids? It's classic. Actually a classic government problem, right? So that's really what we're doing. I mean, there's a lot of fancy terms in what we're doing, a lot of fancy technology, but really that's our first use case. We got a bunch of other use cases, but that's our first use case is to help the fiber salesman find the RFPs and pre-qualify them and bid on them.
Wow. That's awesome. And you did show me a little bit of the platform, and it seems to work very well too.
Well, that's AI. I mean, that's a whole other topic, but then it's a fascinating one because, so I did. There's a lot of stuff in the AI news right now. I didn't do it probably because I'm older. I did it the way I've always developed software products. I design it. Right? Because I have the experience. I know what I wanted to do. Like I just told you, I know I have the vision. And then even with a human team, I would be, we got design. Here's what I want it to look like. Here's the design. I don't want to code it myself, but okay, you guys, whatever, 10 young programmers. I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I treated AI the same way. In other words, I designed it and we did it really just a bit at a time. Right. And it took 9 months. It took with me and AI going back and forth, iterations, building it on layers and layers until I finally got to what I wanted it to do. But I didn't write any of the code. Now I can read because I've written code before. I have written millions of lines of C code before, and I do know, whatever, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I understand programming language. So when AI spits something at me, I get into, I'm diving into the AI rabbit hole again. It's okay.
It's about the company, so it's okay.
It's one of those, it's like, do I have any employees? Not really. Does it feel like I have 10 employees? Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Because
the workload.
Because in fact, we're doing more now. We're helping some of our customers write the bids. AI. So I give it a template. I give it the competitive information. I feed it everything that's in the government system, and AI writes the whole damn proposal, the whole thing in Word and in templates and with SLAs and all the legal language. And all I have to do is look at it and make sure it didn't make any stupid mistakes. It usually doesn't. I better stop going down that rabbit hole.
I mean, it is one of those things, and we talked about it when we first had our call. It's people think that AI is going to replace our brains, but we have to have the learning and the capacity to understand what we're putting into the AI to make it work as well as it does. So it really does take our brain power in the end.
I mean, I'm older, so, the term for me is garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you said garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. It's not that complex.
Exactly. Well, just to go into our last question, for a district that knows connectivity matters, but maybe feels overwhelmed by, where to start, what advice would you give a district that is new to E-rate or just looking to strengthen their approach?
Well, you can go to the government website if you want. USAC, Universal Service Administration Corporation.
I'll put it in our description.
Yeah, usac.org. Okay, there's a lot there, and they've got everything there, knowledge there. You can just go to my blog. You can read. You can go to santoelectronics.com and click on my E-rate consulting button there, and it'll take you to. My wife and I do that. That's the side where we help the schools, right? That's not the Map4 side. So there's two sides. Map4 is helping the providers and doing all the mapping stuff, but the consultant side is helping. So anyway, there's a blog there, and you just read through my stuff and read the E-rate blog. I got stuff. There's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot going on right now, probably running up against the time frame here, but the FCC wants to do a whole overhaul of the entire E-rate program. The impetus is the kids have too much screen time at school. So why are we spending...
And then the AI conversation again.
Yeah. And then, why are we giving $5 billion to the schools so that they spend more time on their phones? And so the FCC chair had to I don't know. There's a lot of politics here, and there's a lot of opinions about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. My people ask me all the time. Just don't give your kids the phone. Go to school and learn. Just leave your phone at home. It's that simple. But kids can't be without their phones. So
parents don't even want their kids to not have their phones because of all the safety concerns nowadays.
Is that? Yeah. Well, I heard about something else. There's another trend that I just heard about is the schools are implementing a lockbox where when you're in class, you put your phone in a box and it's locked. When you're done with your class or whatever you're doing, then you can get your phone back. Just, no distractions. When
I was in school, we couldn't have phones at all. And the only time we could have them is if we went to the locker room during lunch or in the morning before class. And I feel like
that makes sense to me.
It's good because when you're at that age, you need to have the social interaction. Your brain is still developing. And since COVID, I think it's set us back a bit in terms of having that face-to-face.
It's put so much pressure on the FCC that they feel like they have to overhaul the whole system, that they're just getting pressure that they're spending all this money, and basically the kids are there's too much screen time.
Yeah. Well, we'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah. The parents and the teachers, that's their role, in my opinion. Technology's technology. You can't stop.
Yeah. There's just a big, there's a big generational gap. There's a big learning gap. And I think we just need to find a way to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
But
so I don't know.
I appreciate you coming on to talk with me today, though. And I think, you have a lot of really, really great experience that can help a lot of district leaders that are learning how to, navigate the E-rate system better. And I think, we have a lot of takeaways too that they can, take back and look into more. So appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise.
Yeah, I hope I helped somebody.
Yeah, definitely. If this episode resonated with you, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future conversations with leaders shaping education. Thank you for listening to Empowered K-12. I'm Alana Pinckley, and this has been Partners in Purpose.